See, I could say that first, initially, this diagnosis is something very, very crucial and very important for us to proceed with. And once we get a diagnosis, um, we can actually go to a right place and then take the correct information. So that is very important, and we need a guide. So literally we can find out a guide for us to direct us in a path where we will lead to. And not only that, see, just because we get a diagnosis, there is nothing to get depressed. Of course, that would be there even if anybody says that, but there is always hope. There is always a light for us to walk through, and there is always somebody who would have been there on the path, so we can approach them and then we can get the correct guidance, and literally we can actually do many things at home only. So though we get the diagnosis, and though we are able to go to many people, we can do lot of things at home. The home is the best place to get the intervention done. With a mutual team effort, things can be done very well, and particularly the communication aspects or the socialization aspect happens only from home. Once the parent is actually having lot of focus and clarity, then there will be lot of change in the children. So he was actually very aggressive. He's a very aggressive child, and he would every day hit his brother and kind of very much aggressive. But once I started doing yoga, he could get that, once I calmed down and I could handle him better, then that showed literally the effect on the Kedar. So there were a lot of changes in him. So I personally feel that maybe our emotions are directly affecting the child. So if we can calm down, or if we literally can push ourselves and make ourselves comfortable, that could really have a change or impact on the child.
Parents should look out for early signs, because nowadays we have the milestones list. Maybe earlier nobody had the milestone list. Now everybody's got the milestone list. So just check out for what are the milestones the child is missing. And much later we came to know that most of our children with autism have missed out the crawling. And that's a very important milestone. And we were never told that it was important. And nobody even asked us. Only when we were going to some other workshops, then we came to know, and we all realized that most of our children did not crawl. So any kind of milestones you've missed, just check in and then talk to the doctor, feel free, and come out with a convincing answer. Don't say that, let not the doctor or specialist say that it's okay. It's not okay really. Yeah, when we go to any kind of any parent goes for a diagnosis, first thing they ask is the child hyperactive? See, that's the first thing they look out. Most of the time what's happening is people are looking out for things that are visible. Like if you see that the child is pacing up and down or running around or jumping, then you think, okay, this child is hyperactive. Maybe sometime, in my case, what happened was when my child was taken to a doctor, he was a very senior person, and he had a 3-step stool. And my child was very fond of going up the stairs, and he was just going up and down. And the doctor diagnosed him as severely hyperactive, ADHD, and he was even given Risperidone, which was actually not needed for my child. He was a very silent child sitting in the corner and just looking at some colors. And that was, he was really fascinated by colors at that age, and he was just looking at colors. And then I was asked by the specialist, the psychologist, who diagnosed that he's a hyperactive child. She asked me, do you know what is hyperactivity? Then I was like, I don't know what is hyperactivity. My child is like this. She said, see, it's not like this, that everybody, you cannot go with a checklist and say if it's hyperactive, okay, if it's not hyperactive, no, he's not autistic. It's not like that. But my child had a lot of sensory issues. He had a lot of routine behaviors. All these things do come in the checklist of autism. But then you cannot say that if the child is not hyperactive, it doesn't mean that he is not. And if the child is not having sensory issues, it doesn't mean that he is not. Or if the child is having sensory issues, it doesn't mean that it's something serious. See, we all have to check out, and then you look out as to what you really need to work into. Because if the child is high, tactile defensive, you work for that. There's no need of working on his vision, which is really good. Or there's no need to work on something which is auditory. If the child is able to, perceive everything well, then there's no need to, work on his auditory aspect of it. And when he's not at all tactile defensive, there's no need why you should work on the tactile defensiveness, the sensitivity. So I'd like to say that please look out for things and just don't ignore or don't go by somebody said something, or maybe the friend's child was diagnosed with something, and don't go by it, or don't even ignore the symptoms and signs that you see in your own child. And I'd like to add one more thing is nowadays we find that there are a lot of treatments coming up. It's like there's so many quacks, and you find boards saying that we treat epilepsy, we treat autism, we treat ADHD. But actually when you go there, you find that the person really doesn't even know what is ADHD, what is autism. It's just that they've grabbed some words and they thought that people are really into it, and then let's just go about it. It's not that. And then the treatments are really exuberant and so costly. I mean, you cannot just go with some blind faith saying that no, this person is going to treat me and all that. It's not like that. You have to look into what actually the person knows. Is he really knowledgeable? Does he really know? And what is it that he is going to work with? It's not that, I would say that you should never leave a child in a closed room and say, okay, he's working. It's not going to work like that. You need to know how he's going to work. You need to ask questions. You need to get a convincing answer.
My name is Himabindu Gattu. I run a center called Abhilasha Research Center in Secunderabad. I've been running this center from last 12 years. I started this NGO 12 years back for my son, Abhinand. He has hydrocephalus and other associated conditions like seizures. He has cerebral palsy and other issues because of stroke. And this journey is not that easy. Its journey has been hectic, and also I learned a lot and I met very nice people during my journey. For a new parent, be prepared, and only thing I suggest to you is believe in your child and work hard. And comparing to last, as I told you, my child is 20 years old. Comparing to when I compare from last 20 years, technology has been changed, adaptive equipment has been changed, and lot of facilities are available for the parents, and lot of awareness programs are going on, and lot of experts are talking on these topics, and workshops are going on. We learn a lot from back then to now. So use that facility, and also talk to the specialist in the area where what your child diagnosis is, and learn as much as you can, and be an advocate for your child, and get whatever help you can, and talk to people, talk to friends, talk to the parents who are in the similar position like you, who faced all these challenges. And I also should add that all the parents go through some stages. Like we first deny that our child has this issue, and then we get frustrated, then we get angry, then we get depressed, and all this will end with acceptance. End of the day, the child is ours. So when we accept the child for what he is, we accept the diagnosis, we accept what condition he is in, and we will try to help the child. So same thing with a child with a CP. This is a lifelong disability, but we have to learn how to work with the disability, how to work with our child. Forget about the disability and love your child as he is, and do as much as we can with the help of the experts. And while going through this, I also advise all the family members to help a mother, because most of the time what happens is all the burden falls on the mother, taking care of the child 24/7, or like going to therapies, going to the doctors, getting stuff, or most of the time it is the mother who is facing the challenge. So we as a mother, we also shouldn't feel that we should do everything by ourselves. We should take help from our family members, either husband or brothers and sisters, grandparents, because either good or bad, we are a family. We have to work together to help the child and the whole family. When a child with a disability have a sibling, actually they are more helpful to the family because they are very open minded and they will try to help the mother, parents, and also the child. I can tell about my own son who helps me a lot with my older son. So what I did was I involved him in every aspect of Abhinan's life, like from brushing till taking him out. So for him, his brother is a brother. He doesn't look at the disability. He just, whenever we are going to a movie, he says, okay, let's take him in a wheelchair, and he helps me to pack his stuff and go to a movie. So like that we should involve. And we have a student in our school whose sister is so much involved. Everybody calls her second mother to the child. So she, as soon as she comes home from school, she checks the child's diary to see what she did in the school.
Today you are bombarded with therapies and all sorts of things are happening. You really have to choose and don't go for everything. All the children don't need everything. There are certain things they need. We need to find it out. But start with the developmental pediatrician and the team, psychologists and others. There will be a team of people. Find people like that and stick and listen to them. And also you only go to people who will accommodate you, like, who will help you to sit there, listen, play with them and interact and so on, not just shutting you out and then having the child in the room and having therapy and so on.